Yes, it's interesting that you say that, because we also, I think our team is meeting today with the architects because we're reimagining our space, and we're about ready to do a renovation. And we've just come from places like I don't know how many of y'all have been to Bloomberg's office at City Hall in New York. It's a total open space environment with Bloomberg sitting right in the middle, literally in a fishbowl, and surrounded by fish tanks for some reason. So sort of inspired by that, a number of us were out in Seattle at the Starbucks meeting and went to the Gates Foundation Visitor Center, which has a fascinating, now of course they spent $500 million on their physical plant, and so we won't be doing that, but we won't even be doing even a fraction of that, but we are trying to think about how do we build upon we love our space, but how do we build upon that to create even more sort of open environments? We have donated cubes that are kind of high that people can't really see each other. So we're trying to figure out what we have a sense of is that, and what I think most of the theory is telling us is that what the key is the combination, the interaction between open space and the capacity for people to step back and have individual space. So there's this new book about introverts called Quiet, which is all about how genius is sparked by people working individually, which goes contrary to the Bloomberg, right, everybody mixed together. But I think the key is having open space for people to interact and then time for people to be able to withdraw. And so we're trying to build upon that and do even more of that here. And so I think a big part of our hope is to create, again, more open space environment, less siloing, and more opportunity for interaction and for common and community space that's not closed door, but where people can have small meetings, but maybe in community versus withdrawn into small spaces. So when the group comes back in a few years, we'll have more to share around that as well. So Tracy had something, and Tracy was a part of originally designing this. You want to talk about the...
Yeah, I was just going to add a couple of interesting things. So this space is also a community hub for Atlanta. So we like to think of this as the place where Atlantans come to get connected. And when we moved into this building many years ago now, it was interesting. We envisioned kiosks all in the front area, that people would actually come here and they would choose their project and they would run out to it. And it's been interesting over the last 4 to 5 years to see how our technology has transformed into that virtual hub. So we hope that now, certainly that this continues to be a convening space for Atlantans, but really that our websites and some of our web technologies help people to connect very immediately in their communities with the issues that they care about.
And I would just say that one of the things that we probably don't take full advantage of, but was a part of this, is having our local organization, Hands On Atlanta, be a part, share our space, and so that we are both practicing at a national level, but experiencing and being a laboratory for local community and learning and being close to the customer. The key is are we really living that out, which we sometimes don't do as much.
My name is Trevor Martin. I'm from the Veterans Health Administration. My question is, with veterans and startups, when they come to you, or you reach out to them with your limited financial and human resources, how do you go about vetting them and determining where to allocate those resources?
When vetting them, but I'm sorry, I just missed the very first part of the question. When organizations come to us, or when?
When ventures or startups
when
come
ventures,
to you, or
yeah,
you
okay.
them, how do you, with your limited resources, both human and financial, how do you vet them?
Yeah, so it's a really good question that we struggle with, and we can sometimes feel like we're spread too thin. I don't know if you want to address this from the incubator perspective.
I think it's a really good question, and I think what we've learned to do and continue to try to do is how do we bring the kind of talent we need to work with us to do that evaluation. So we've reached out into community to identify entrepreneurs, business leaders, foundations, to participate in an evaluation screening that we do. But we also really empower our units that know their business, if you will, know what they're focused on, to be thinking about what are those critical questions that we need to ask as I better understand how youth get connected, for example, and where are the gaps, and who is doing the best work. And so we do try to keep our finger on the pulse a little bit, whether it's through our partnerships with our local affiliates or partners, to see what's happening, what are the trends, and who's right at that cutting edge of those trends, so that we engage them in our work. So whether they're a possible acquisition or a possible collaborator, we want to make sure we're connected with those that are doing the very best. But it's a really, really great question, and we're figuring out some of our assessment tools as well. So we go forward. Pat, did you have something to add to that?
It just occurred to me, one thing that's really important is that we don't believe we have to do it all. And I think that's one of the things Michelle said in this whole first one about increasing the network, that you're never going to be able to meet all the needs. And so we've really looked at this network of networks, and what does a partnership mean in terms of the fact that is there someone else out there who has particular technical expertise or in an area that we can partner with, and together we might serve or answer or respond to the question. And so it's not always thinking that you have to be the leader in this, but that you might be the leader in bringing others together to solve an issue.
Well, and I think, we have looked at a couple of organizations that we've thought about acquiring, and we've decided it didn't make sense for us to do that. But, we struggle with that. I think I am sometimes accused of never meeting a new initiative that I didn't like. And so I've started to keep a little list of the things that I've said no to, so that when people make that accusation, I say, remember, we've said no to these 19 things. But I think it's an ongoing organizational challenge that we live with, and that's part of our organizational culture is to grapple with that. What do we say yes to, and what do we say no to? Yeah, and I know, Al, tell me okay. So maybe one or two more quick questions, and then we'll take a break.
I'm Tony Bell from the Department of State, and I just want to know, do y'all have a global engagement where y'all go to different countries and see some of their programs that they have, and try to see if there's things you can work together, leverage, and global society type programs?
We do. Aisha, do you want to take this?
Sure. We do, and it's so exciting what's happening around the world. Our Hands on China affiliate, for example. I see how individuals are getting engaged. So we are in 15 countries where we have affiliates that are working to engage individuals and work with companies. And we, our global service, we're incubating and figuring out how do we double that number of entrepreneurs and grow, double that network, if you will. So our head of global service is in Madrid this week. Last week they were in Asia, bringing together our affiliate in Korea sort of convened. The Philippines is just celebrating its 10th year anniversary. They're leading really the nonprofit sector, thinking about service and engagement. So we're very excited about the promise, but also the challenge of what's happening globally. But talking about Thomas Friedman, so we know the world is flat, and so how do we learn from what's happening around the world and also share our learning? So we really hope to be doubling our network over the next 3 years. And it's corporations that are asking for that, but it's also citizens in those countries that are looking for ways to get involved and to address these issues.
From 15 to 30?
For 15 to 30. So 15 countries to 30 in the next 3 years.
And we are learning a lot from those countries too. We've adopted a lot of the things that Manila has been doing, and we're taking them back and doing them here. Alan Solomon, who's the ambassador in Spain, is hosting this conference in Madrid this week. So, did you have a final question? I cut you. Okay.
Hi, sorry. I'm Kristen Ratcliffe from the Department of Health and Human Services. So my question, I wanted to go back to the idea of failing fast, and that you can learn as much from your failures as you do from your successes. So do you guys have a process, or have you envisioned, a way of sort of teasing out those learnings and best practices from the things that maybe don't go quite as well as you had hoped, and plan for sort of addressing those in other future endeavors that you do, so you don't end up, sort of making mistakes and you're learning from your failures as well as your successes?
I think, Aisha, I don't know if you want to talk about it from the incubator perspective. I think we're still trying to figure out how do you integrate that throughout the whole organization versus just in the incubator. And so we sometimes have sort of laughed that when it feels like whenever we just don't do something very well, we say, well, we were trying to fail fast, you know, or we were thank goodness we were just testing, you know, we're all in this incubation thing, so it becomes kind of a nice way of talking about your failures. But I think that the general premise of trying to take, again, minimum viable product and trying to then, you know, see what it's like. So just to give you one example, we are trying to develop some social enterprises, so organizational sort of initiatives that will help either be self-sustaining through revenue or that will actually generate revenue for the organization that's not philanthropic. And so one example is, could we create sort of a trip advisor for people when you're going to Brazil or Madrid, could you go to this site and say, I'm going to add on a day of service and I'm going to be engaged, or I'm going to South Africa, I want to go to Soweto and have a service experience in that community. And so we started out thinking we needed to raise $250,000 for the website, and that would be our traditional let's go get a grant. And we now are saying, you know what, we're gonna actually invest $5,000 internally, and we're gonna start we're gonna start doing it. We're gonna start sending people, and we're gonna see if that works, and we're gonna give ourselves 3 months. So that's an example of sort of how we're practically putting it into place, but need to do more of it. And it is sometimes hard, especially with programs that you've been doing for a long time, to recognize whether they, you know, oh, well, you know, maybe that's been failing for 10 years and we just didn't actually see it as clearly. So, all right, well, I think we're gonna have a coffee break and then come back together. Really appreciate the questions and the engagement, and look forward to, during the coffee break, you all giving us your ideas and reflections about our work and what you're learning as well. Thank you.